In 1996, the National Safety Council established June as National Safety Month in the United States. My name is John Savoya. I'm an executive level health and safety professional. I've been in construction for over 20 years and health and safety for over 11 of them. I thought it would be fun to conduct a few interviews of other safety professionals and post them throughout the course of this month. So stay tuned. Hey everybody, it's John Savoy. I'm back with another interview, and I'm with Anthony Kemp Jr. Anthony, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Anthony Kemp Jr. Just a brother that loves safety, love people, and feel like this is a passion of mine. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. I've been listening to a bunch of your podcasts, so I thought, who better than to have on than Mr. Anthony Kemp Jr. from the safety realm.
Yes,
So,
sir.
first of all, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I had a great day at work, very productive. Had a good safety meeting with my service team and took care of some reports and things like that. So I had a great day.
Good, good. That's good to hear. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of it, why don't you give the listeners a little bit about yourself?
So currently, right now, I'm actually a site safety coordinator on as far as a title with the business that I work for called Dynaton. Very great company, great people, and I also currently move between general industry and construction. So I'm one of the people I always say I'm very blessed and fortunate because I'm able to see what it's like to build buildings, and I'm also able to see what it's like to apply safety in a general setting, which may be manufacturers or warehouses dealing with, different types of people with different perspectives of safety because it's two different industries. So that's pretty much what I do. I'm very passionate about safety. I feel like it's a good service to humanity. And, I try to lead with integrity. I also try to lead with impact. I don't know what happened, like over a period of time. I don't know. I think I got a hold of just some good mentors and people that I've met throughout my life, very wise men who just basically told me, like, if I'm going to go for something, go for it, have a good positive impact, help the next generation, help the generation I'm in now, around my age, and just be impactful in history. So I just have that may sound kind of deep, but like when I wake up in the morning, a little something about me because of my faith. I believe I was built on purpose for a purpose. And I try to walk that out every day when I come in and out of work. So work is not hard for me. There may be challenges, but work is actually a little bit more like smooth sailing because I get along with people. And when I'm speaking, I speak with purpose. So at least that's what I believe. That's what's in my own conscious mind when I'm speaking to people. So that's a little bit about me and my background.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree with you. My father used to tell me, when you were younger and trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, and I've been in construction forever, so I shouldn't have even asked the question. But when you're younger and you want to be all kinds of things, I used to say to my father, like, what should I be? Where should I work? And he says, listen, go to work where work isn't work, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you wake up and you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life. But
Yeah.
so I totally agree with you, and I agree. I say that safety is a vocation, right? It's not a profession.
Hmm.
You're called to do safety because of genuine care and love for people. But how long you been in safety, man?
So I'm coming up on 5+ years this month actually. And man, I'm so blessed, man. The way I started was so unorthodox. I didn't have a 4-year university degree. I didn't have an associate's degree or anything like that. With prayer and just faith and putting work with it. I didn't just sit back and just pray about it, but I actually put work with it. Man, I ended up starting at a job that, to be honest, I was not qualified to be on that job. Like I think on a scale from like 1 to 10, I probably had like, man, barely 2% of what was really necessary. And so when the door opened for me and my safety director called me, he knew I was new to the industry. Let me say to the niche of safety. I had already been in construction doing civil geolab stuff. And so when he called me and said, what do you know? He said one of the reasons why he called me in was because of the initiative that I took. So I got my CPR first aid training. I went and got my OSHA 510, and I was just doing what I could. I vamped my resume along the stuff that I learned. And he was like, man, I like the initiative. We have a job for you. And man, this job was like, I can't say the name of it because I had to sign a confidential paperwork saying that I wouldn't say the actual name out in public. But put it this way, this is a very popular company. And man, the guy who trained me was like, look at this paperwork and see what qualifications they're asking for. Man, I looked at that paperwork. I said, man, I don't think I'm supposed to be out here. But I was very fortunate to learn a lot. And that job site, like safety was really here. It was like the pinnacle of everything that was done on that job. And it really shaped and molded my character and personality about safety. So when I left that job, a lot of the smaller projects that I do throughout the Dallas Fort Worth area kind of become a little bit more easy because I started at such a high level. But yeah, I've been doing safety 5 years now, 5+ years now. And man, I can honestly say I've been enjoying every minute of it. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's cool, man. I got somewhat of a similar history in terms of no university degree or anything like that. So I totally feel you about when you look at the qualifications, or we should say qualifications of the job, right,
Hmm.
with air quotes,
Right.
and you get a little bit intimidated by it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't go to college, university, period. Right,
Hmm.
I've been in construction my entire life, and I happened to stumble into safety by a fluke. Right, I got a job that a lot of people applied for, and only four people got hired for,
Right.
and that turned me into a Ministry of Labor inspector, which is somewhat equivalent to your OSHA
Hmm.
down there, and that's how I got my foot in the door through safety, and my career just picked up from there. But I feel you on the experience portion of it, right? And looking at all these qualifications and thinking to yourself, oh man, like, I have none of these, but it's true what they say, right? You got to perceive, you believe, and achieve, right?
Yes. Yes.
If you believe that you can do something, you're passionate about it, you put in the work to get there, then you'll get there. So I feel you 100%. But you said you've had experience in construction and some general industry before, and personally, I think that that's very important because like I remember when I was in construction, every time somebody came up to me and said, hey, look, my book says you're doing it wrong, without actually understanding what I was doing,
Hmm.
it created a confrontational attitude as opposed to collaborative
Right.
attitude. But having said that, with the experience that you have in the industry, before becoming a safety person, do you think that that helped you develop as a safety person? Does it help you connect with the worker on maybe a level that somebody who doesn't have the experience will be able to connect with them?
Yeah, definitely. I think the reason why it helped me a lot was because I understood the importance of the stringent work that people are doing. And so I did testing, concrete material testing, and it was very labor intensive. So I understand that you need to respect the people that are out there doing the work, and you want to try to build a business relationship with them. Ask them, what did you do this weekend? How is your family? Man, I heard you just had a child. People really appreciate that because it kind of helps you break that ice barrier between you two. Because, like you said, a lot of people see a safety person or a professional, whatever we want to give our titles to be, and they feel like we don't work enough or we don't understand what it's like to do labor intense work. And so you oftentimes have to kind of break the ice and let them know, I'm not against you. I'm not here to be a drill sergeant. I'm here to point out things that may be wrong because I actually care about you. Now, I can't speak for everybody in safety. I've when I first got started, man, I met people they had all the paperwork, but man, I mean, they had such low impact. It was just like, I was 29 when I got into safety, and it was like my eyes opened very wide because it was like, oh, okay, this is the person I don't need to be like the person who's never out in the field, the person who's spending more time in the office than they are actually speaking to people. Then when you do come out, you're treating people a very like, oh, they're down here way. Like these are the people I don't want to be like. And then I also found people who had that balance. The guy who trained me, he had a really good balance. His name was Freddie Moore. I actually made a segment about him. He really taught me how to balance safety with the person. Understand that some people have been doing this a long time. And when you come in here telling them they're doing it wrong and you just come straight out the gate saying that, they're like, man, this young kid or this young man ain't been living but 30 something years. I've been living 60. So you have to be very strategic in your approach. And so that helped me a lot, along with my experience being out there doing concrete, being out in the hot sun all day. I mean, just, out in 120-degree weather here in Texas, it gets very hot, gets very humid. As a matter of fact, today it was highly humid. And, I understand, like, man, your body gets tired, and you don't want somebody making you feel like you don't know how to do your job. You want somebody to be an addition and in collaboration with you to help you perform your job better. So that definitely helped me.
Yeah, for sure. And you brought up two good points there, and I'm going to get to one later on. Excuse me. But and that's not to say that designations and education don't have value, because I truly believe that they do. Right.
Hmm.
Personally, I'm pursuing the CMI OSH from IOSH, and I was just
Hmm.
designated a member of the International Institute of Risk and Safety Management. So
Okay.
continuing improvement is always a good thing. But to your point, I think that the most important thing has to be developing that connection with the human being doing the work. So one of the things I love
Hmm.
that you said is, at the beginning you were talking to people saying, "Hey, I just heard you had a baby. How's everything at home?" Like that, people tend to forget that this is a human profession, right? We
Right.
are in the business of protecting humans.
Hmm.
Um, but I did want to touch on, you mentioned your mentor, right? And
Hmm.
mentors to me, they're everything. I've had a lot of great mentors, and I mentor a lot of up and coming and great safety professionals. What did having a strong mentor mean to you? What did that do for your career?
It really expedited my career. Man, hands down. So I was brought up, my dad always told me, if you really want to go far in life, you need to get to know the people who are already where you want to go. And this is nothing deep. This is nothing where you got to go to a master's degree type of program to get this. This should be rather fundamentals of life. And that's what my dad taught me. So I've always kind of talked to people a little bit older than me, maybe twice my age at times, because I've found as a young man, it's helped me to be able to know more, not just more than my peers, but help me to make wiser decisions. And so having a mentor, Freddie Moore, really helped me. So when I started spreading my wings and flying, it wasn't so bad when I left that job. I also ran into another person who was a mentor for me for a little while by the name of Daniel. And he had everything that people in the US look for. He had a master's degree that he completed in occupational safety and health. He has a CSP, which is a certified safety professionals designation from the board of certified safety professionals, which is a pretty big deal. Um, and one of the things that he told me, we talked and we fellowshiped for quite some time. He was getting ready to retire, and he said this to me in my first year of safety. And I said, yeah, I don't know this yet. And I kind of kept saying that to him. And I guess I kind of set off a light bulb for him, like, hey, let me let this guy know you're not going to know everything. And man, that was like so much, that made me so comfortable because I thought like I needed to know everything. He was like, Anthony, let me tell you something. I've been in this industry over 30 years. I got a master's degree and I have a CSP. I have all these designations and things under my belt. You're always going to continue to learn. You're not going to know everything. Now, there are things that you should know right off the bat, but there's things that you haven't dealt with yet that you're not going to know until you get there. And so that really kind of helped me say, oh, okay, so I don't have to have so much pressure on my brain of trying to remember over 600 standards in the OSHA book. I can actually say, okay, where can I find the information to study up on this so that I can protect the employees that are on the front lines? I always say the employees that are out there in the field that are actually doing the work, their front line, their priority. And he just told me, he said, man, you'll see the more you learn. When you know how to go to that OSHA book and you know how to look up your subparts and you know what standards to go to and you know how to search through the book, all of the answers to your question are there. And that really helped me a lot. And so just running across people like yourself, people who are passionate about this, there's so many people in safety, man, that's just boring. It's like, oh man, dude, you make this so boring, man. Like, where's the life in what you do? And maybe I'm just enthusiastic like that, and I have enthusiasm, maybe a little bit too much sometimes. But I mean, man, I just couldn't work and do anything at this point in my life, especially knowing people passing away that I love and care about. Man, life is very short. And, before you know it, I'll be 60. And so, I think 10, 20 years down the line. So I think, what can I do now to make the best of the history that I live in now? And I've just seen so many people that they're mentors, but, their approach is real bad. And sometimes they're just like, they make a certain amount of money and it's like that's all they want. I'm like, man, that's not what I want though. Like I really want impact. Like, and I can't shake it off. Like sometimes I'm like, let me shake this off a little bit. Let me get this off my shoulder. And I'm like, I can't help it. It's in my mind, it's in my heart to when I talk with people like yourself, when I do interviews, like this is my first time being interviewed. Like in my mind, this is what life is about, intellectual conversations with people. You said you live in Canada, correct?
Yep.
I
Yep.
mean, you across the world. Like to me, it don't get no better than this. Like I'm talking to somebody across the world that does the same thing I do, may have different ways of handling things, may have different acronyms, beside their name, but we we do the same thing, and it just shows how great and how much safety crosses across the globe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I work with a company called RSG International, which is one of the industry leaders in road safety products and work zone safety. So, temporary concrete barrier, steel barrier, overhead highway signs, guide rails, crash cushions. So, it's a phenomenal company that's
Hmm.
legitimately dedicated to safety, right? Maybe
Yeah.
not in the same definition that you or I speak about safety,
Hmm.
but overall safety for the motoring public and work zones. But I we also have operations in the United States, so I'm familiar with OSHA and
Hmm.
the different state laws and things like that. But I want to go back to something you said about your mentor and navigating OSHA. It's funny that you mentioned that you don't need to know all of the standards off by heart. When I was coming up as an inspector, or being trained before I got my badge as a an officer with the Ministry of Labor.
Hmm.
One of the training inspectors at the time, I was frustrated because, like you, I was like, I don't know these laws off the top of my head.
Right.
And his name was Vince, and he said to me, you're never going to know them. You don't need to know them off the top of your head. He says the most important thing that you can know about this book is where to find it.
Yeah.
He says if you
Yes,
know where
sir.
to find that section, right? If you know
Hmm.
where to find any section, you're going to get ahead in your safety career. So you got some good advice from I believe you said his name was Dan. That's very good advice from from your mentor there, because the fact of the matter is that we're never going to know all of the standards and
Hmm.
all the laws off the top of our heads, but we need to be competent enough to know how to find them.
Yes,
And
sir.
look, I spent 5 years of my life investigating workplace fatalities and critical injuries and things like that. So I'm kind of past the enforcement side of safety, and now I'm into the psychological and cultural side of safety. Um, and to me, that's all about communication and collaboration with
Hmm.
people. But how do you approach communication and collaboration with workers on site? Like, what's your approach when you see somebody doing something that is not the
Hmm.
safest way to do it, or that there's a safer way to do it? How would you approach them? To build that rapport, that trust, and to get their buy-in.
Yeah. So, man, my mom, I'm thinking about my mom. So sometimes I use slang. So, so I want to be, I'm myself, especially when I'm in the field. And yes, I do adapt the way I approach things depending on the person because some people may see certain language that I use is like, is he a smart guy or not? But I'm like around the way. I'm an around the way guy. Right. If I see somebody doing something wrong, I'll say, hey, brother, do me a favor, big dog. Not can't do that. Let's get this. Yeah, thank you. I'm like that. I'm not aggressive in my approach. Now, if it's something immediate danger to life and health, okay, I'm gonna, hey, hold up. We can't, no, I'm a little bit more aggressive in my approach because I care about the person and I don't want them to get
Rightfully
hurt,
so. Yeah.
because it's something that could cause a fatality. But like stuff with, working without cut resistant gloves, and I know this person's cutting with a bandsaw. I'll lightly tap them on the shoulder. I'll say, hey, brother, do me a favor. I need you to get gloves, man. I talked about that this morning in the safety meeting, and I believe that people like that approach. Now, there are times where I have to be a little bit more straightforward. And that's because you have people who are willfully not listening because they feel that they can do what they want, which at that point you become a liability not only to yourself, but to the company. And the whole point of safety is to keep people working so that we can continue to make money. And so I've actually found that teaching people, to answer your question, teaching them the back end of safety is actually just as important as saying the do's and the don'ts. I was talking to a gentleman that I work with. I said, man, I think one of the mistakes we make in safety is not explaining the back end. So currently, I was doing an orientation today with some guys, and I said, man, something that I want you all to understand. I work with general industry and construction within the company. If I have a guy get hurt on the general industry side and they're in a completely different department, and I have 4 people get hurt over here in construction, I want you to know at the end of the year, they don't say, well, this part of the business was general industry, this part was construction. We're going to look at these numbers differently. That's not a thing when you turn in the OSHA 300 forms at the end of the year. What they're looking at is the collective body of people who was hurt within the business. And I find that people really love it when I just take time to explain that to them because it opens them up. Like, man, I'm so used to people telling me not to do this and don't do that. You can't do that. Good job. But you never teach them the business side. And so I found that that has helped people a lot. And it's also kind of helped our bond professionally be like, hey, if somebody says something negative about me, most people are gonna be like, Anthony, I don't know, man. He don't come off be that kind of guy. Maybe you're talking about somebody else. So I've found that that's helped me a lot.
That's you know what that's a fantastic answer, and it makes me think about something. I was joking with one of my staff the other day. I said, listen, safety is a sales job,
Yeah.
right? We have to sell people their own livelihood, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have to sell the organization on the positive benefits of investing in safety, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I know how we approach it, and I'm very thankful because, I've dealt with a lot of organizations that maybe don't see it the same way, but our organization here, safety is a core value, right? It's in everything that we do. But, you know, how do you approach senior leadership when you know that you have to stop something, you have to stop some work that might cost them 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 grand in the
Mm-hmm.
downtime, but
Mm-hmm.
that it's legitimately unsafe. how
Mm-hmm.
how how do you approach that? And have you ever had a situation where you've had to do that, and how did that go?
So because I'm big on building the relationship first, most of the time, if I have to do that, people know that like, hey, if Anthony's making that decision right now, something's wrong. It's not because I'm trying to show that I've been to school and I know this and that. Like none of that matters to me. Like what matters to me is what you do with the knowledge that you obtain. And so I think maybe there might have been 2 or 3 times in my career where I've been like, hey man, we have to stop this work. This guy almost got hurt. It was a near miss, something like that, so we can learn from it. Or, stopping a crane pick because maybe there is a miscommunication, it seems. To me, as much as I respect people who've done this longer than me, I also understand that I have a responsibility as a safety professional practicing safety on a day-to-day basis to make sure that this employee is not getting hurt, even if he or she does not know out of ignorance because they don't have anybody to teach them, or nobody has taught them yet, or they're new to the industry. So, I do care about stopping work when I know that it's going to hurt probably the production, but productivity and the physical health of somebody, we're going to stop productivity so we can get this right. And then we're going to ramp things back up. Because if somebody gets hurt, the whole job could get shut down. So, like from a construction standpoint, a lot of the general contractors are involved. A lot of their safety reps are involved. And, they have every right to see something that could have been seriously put somebody in critical condition. They have every right to stop work, just as much as I have every right, and even more of a responsibility with the contract, with the sub work that I'm doing, to say, hey man, we can't do that. I understand that we're on a time crunch, but let's slow our roll a little bit, because if we get an incident that's not even physical harm to an employee, what if we damage property? That could cost us 20, 30,000. On top of that, now we got to go through all the paperwork. We got to go through inspections. We got to get all the higher ups involved. It's unnecessary. If we just take maybe 2 minutes, maybe five, just to make sure we got all our T's crossed, we're good. And, most people understand that. I would say most people do now. The people who've been around for a while, who came up probably, you know, 30, 40 years ago in the trade, they're probably like, man, when I was coming up, this was not done. Well, we have better processes now. We there's a reason why things are the way they are. It's not that your generation wasn't good at it. It's just that when OSHA came around in the US, it was around the 1970s. Actually, 1970 was when OSHA was established. The act and everything else kind of started pushing on after that, but it takes time for the world to kind of start catching on that there's a new wave. And now it's becoming very popular for people that I don't even work with. That's just like, man, things have changed, man. When I was coming up, we could ride on. I heard a guy tell me this. He said I could get on a crane and I could ride on the ball of the crane and hold on, put my foot on the ball of the crane and on the actual wire and go up a couple of stories. I'm like, man, you do that now, man. You don't have a job. Like, I don't even understand that. But for them back then, it was kind of like, man, you better not jump off or have a suicidal thought or something. It was more like that. And so I understand that generations are different. So again, my approach with people who, if I have to stop work, it's like, look, hey, I know that you're ready to get this done and we're about to start in 5 minutes, but man, we're running into some hiccups that we need to fix before we start, because man, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Most people understand that atmosphere has changed and safety is just as important as production and quality. Because they understand that, for the ones who are actually kind of starting to give into the culture, they're like, even if they don't want to, they're like, okay, man, I get it, man. All right, just do what you got to do. And, they might be upset for a little bit, but when that job is done, they're like, you know what? Nobody got hurt. I feel pretty good today.
Yeah, it's so you hit the nail on the head, right? Like I came up in construction from my grandfather immigrated from Italy to Canada.
Hmm.
Uh, worked in construction 10 years after he came here. He brought the rest of his family over. My father worked in construction, so it was inevitable that I was going to end up in construction. And
Uh-huh.
honestly, I'm glad I did, because I love this industry. But
Hmm.
I remember starting out, and all of the older gentlemen were the foremen, and we used to cut a trench to put in some storm sewer, some sanitary sewer, something like that. And they'd look at these straight cut walls and they'd say, it looks okay. Right. And then they just jump down there, and look, I'm guilty of it too. Right.
Uh-huh.
I was a product of my environment the same way. So,
Hmm.
I've a long time in my life, 9 years, 9, 10 years before actually getting into safety. I was in and out of trenches with no shoring, no sloping, no stepping,
Yeah, me
anything like
too.
that.
Me too.
Um, but it's the way that we learned, and there was never some ill intent involved.
Hmm.
Nobody ever intended for anybody to get hurt at work. But and I don't think it hit me really until I did my first fatality investigation as an inspector,
Hmm.
which was a cave in. It trapped a 35-year-old father of two
Wow.
um,
Yeah.
in a trench that was about 10 plus feet deep. So I think that in the industry, for the most part, people have good intentions, right? People just want to go there. They want to work hard. They want to get the job done. They want to produce, and they
Hmm.
want to feel good about it. Because listen, I'm sure you can agree. One of the best things about construction is you get to take nothing and turn it into something,
Right. Yes, sir.
and there's a sense of accomplishment there. But there's never any ill intent. But I like the way that you approach it, in as much as having these conversations with people, and these old heads coming up, letting them understand why we do things the way we do. But you know what? On a good note, I think that society as a whole, and the workforce as a whole, in this newer generation, we take safety a lot more seriously. The
Hmm.
more young people I see, they're the ones who care the most about safety. They're the ones who
Yes,
aren't
sir.
afraid to say no, which
Right.
is that's massive, because I would have pissed my pants saying no to my foreman back then. You
Oh
know what I
yeah.
mean? But I did want to move on, because you have a podcast, and I
Hmm.
actually found your podcast when I connected with you on LinkedIn.
Yes, sir.
And the more first of all, I love the way that your podcast is structured. I love the way your episodes flow, because it's very concise. It's to the point. I think
Hmm.
it's a great podcast, and I'm gonna link it in the show notes. When
Thank
I
you, sir.
post this interview. But
Hmm.
number one, how'd you get into podcasting? Number two, what made you want to get into podcasting? And number three, why a safety podcast out of all things?
Man, that's a really good question, man. I love being on the other side of this, being asked questions. I love it. Um, Man, to be honest with you, I was just passionate about safety, and I was like, man, how can I share this with more people? I also, as an African American male, I would tell you a lot of people who look like me sometimes feel like you have to only be in sports. I'm being very transparent right now. I was highly athletic. And sometimes we think we got to be an artist, a rapper, a producer. And so I said, man, I need to show people that come from where I come from that you don't have to just be that. You don't have to. Some people don't have a father figure. And, it's like if I can help them see that you don't have to go selling drugs and all this other stuff, that you could do other things, I should do that. And so I personally, this is probably going to sound weird to a lot of people. I personally feel like it is very selfish for a person to obtain knowledge, to gain success, and to move up the ladder, and you keep it all to yourself. I don't see any honor in that. So for me, a part of the reason why I want to be impactful is for my wife, my daughter. I want to live an upstanding life for them, and especially my daughter. I want her to see like, oh, it's this is what a good, upstanding man should be doing. But I also feel like if I can help that one young man who doesn't have a father figure and he may be in a bad environment, they don't necessarily have to be African American. It could be anybody. I just believe in touching the people and defending the weak. I really believe that I'm supposed to do that. It's in me to say, hey, man, you don't have to go that route. Like all of my younger cousins, when they've been graduating, um, both male and female, the boys and the girls, I tell them, hey, if you need help, call me. I'm not saying I know everything, but if you need help, call me. And I said, okay, so how can I reach these people from all across the globe? There's beauty in culture. There's beauty in people from all across the country. I've met when I got to college, it kind of opened up my understanding of how big the world is. It's bigger than Texas. It's bigger than my community. It's bigger than me. And so I think about people that are in India, people that are in Africa, people who are in Canada like yourself, and people who are like, what do I want to do for a living? And I'm like, man, I just want to be a vehicle to help get the information out. And so I started the podcast in 2019, I believe it was. It was either, I think it was 2019 or 2020. I started the podcast, and I get so much appreciation for it that, sometimes I'm like, man, I'm just making a podcast. But people appreciate it, I guess, because safety is not, it's not really something that people see as fun sometimes. And I try to make it fun. And I also, in my segments, I try to encourage people in the process of giving them safety. So I'll talk about safety, but I'll talk about if you want to be an accountant, but run the accounting department. Like that's just how I am. And believe it or not, man, I didn't grow up like this. If it wasn't basketball, if it wasn't rap, I was just like, well, I guess I won't be nothing. And that's a sad existence because the truth is, everybody's not going to play football, basketball, baseball, hockey, tennis, soccer. Everybody's not going to be an R&B artist, a rapper, a country artist. Everybody can't be that. Somebody has to work these machines. Somebody have to work at these major corporations. Somebody has to be a president. Somebody has to be a vice president, a safety director. Man, there's too much opportunity out here. And when I got around people who had a bigger understanding outside of how I was thinking, I had two great parents, but the influences around me kind of made me veer off a little bit. Man, that made me say, I need to put this podcast out. I need to share it. I need to collaborate with people like yourself, man, that, are all across the country and people can see what I'm doing and see what you're doing. And they're like, man, if he can do it, I can do it. And so that's a part of the reason why I made it. And I wanted to also make safety relatable for people, something that people can relate to. Man, when I was in school, they had no such thing as I didn't know what a safety guy was till I was 29. I didn't know what a safety manager was. Like, even, and to me, it's kind of ridiculous because, like, wait, man, when I graduated in '09 and they were talking about before I graduated, they didn't say, yeah, you can become a safety manager. Like nobody knew that, they didn't teach that. And I think the reason why was because it was still kind of new and people just didn't know about it. And it probably wasn't a popular career to go after. And so now I'm reaching out to my high school. I'm reaching out to the mayor of the city I live in, and I'm trying to let people know like this is an industry where you can make good money. Now, what is good money? That's all predicated upon the person and what they believe a lot of money is or what good money is. I just want to point people in the direction and let them know like, hey, this is like a real thing. You're doing honest work, you're helping people, and if you have a passion for this, you can make a long lasting impact and provide for yourself and your family. So that all of that in a long answer is why I decided to make the Safety Realm podcast.
Honestly, that I couldn't think of a better answer for that question. It's like you said, safety is not a glamorous job, right?
Hmm.
Most of the time. Listen, I'll tell you, it is when there's a near miss and people start to take it seriously, or people see what could have happened.
Hmm.
Uh, at first glance, though, right, safety is not the glamorous part of even construction, right? I ran
Hmm.
dozers and excavators, and I built bridges, and I finished concrete, and that was all. I still love it to this day, right? And
Hmm.
if I had to do anything else, that's what I would be doing. But it's getting that message out, and I love how you said, speaking to people who didn't even know it was an option, right?
Hmm.
Because there's tons of people, and safety is a job about caring, right? You care
Yep.
about the people. And when I was a ministry inspector, an officer, whatever you want to call it, I used to tell people all the time, like, because nobody likes to see you. Same way nobody likes to see OSHA on the site, right?
Mhm. Right,
But I used
right.
to tell people all the time, I'm the babysitter that you hate, but you're going to be safe and sound by the time your parents get home. You know what I mean?
Right. I like
Um,
that.
but safety is a job where you have to care about people, and
Yeah.
I love that you put it out there to let people know that this is an option, right?
Hmm.
Um, but in the interest of time, I do want to get to the last three questions.
Hmm.
Um, the first question is: do you see podcasting becoming not just podcasting, but you know, podcasting and things of that nature becoming a normal means of safety communication or even safety training and things like that?
I do. So I'm still battling with this mentally, to be honest, because when I started this, I was like, when I started getting feedback on LinkedIn, I was like, wow, man, people really listening. Like, and I was talking to one of my homeboys, and he was like, he's older than me. He was like, people call me by my last name, Kemp, for some reason. I don't know. It's just, I guess it flows. He said, Kemp, you'd be surprised how many people are really listening to you and really believe that you're making more of an impact than what you think. And I safety training, I'm not sure, because like when you get into the safety training aspect of it, you're really getting into the weeds of like teaching, teaching, teaching. So what I try to do is uh for liability purposes, like I don't want to put myself in a situation where somebody will want to sue me or something crazy like that. what I try to do is say what I'm saying is for educational purposes only. So that way they can be educated. I'm giving you information and I'm filling you in on the details of what it's like to do a crane pick or what a helicopter pick is like. What is it like to run an excavation um, site or trench installing pipe? I just want people to tap in because when I'm at these different universities and these different data companies building their infrastructures on the safety side, keeping people from getting hurt and making sure that they're built effectively and safely. I'm like, wow, man. I remember when this building was just a whole bunch of land with some steel I-beams. It didn't look like this a year and a half ago. And I'm like, people don't even know what I'm looking at. And like you said, there's beauty in building something that came from nothing. It's like, what? Like, you got the electricians, you got the iron and steel workers, you got the excavators working on this side of the property, and you have drywall, and then it's just like all these different moving parts. You got mechanical, you got controls, it's like, wow, look at all these people from different niches coming together to build one project. It's like, wow, like that's and this is gonna sound real weird, but I look at life like that. Like me collaborating with you on the safety side of things is just like, man, safety stretches across the world. No matter who it is, no matter how long you've done it, it stretches across the world. And this is gonna sound very weird. The other day, somebody needed some help with something, and it was so weird, man. I had like a moment. I was like, man, this is crazy. So they asked me for help and I helped them with what they needed and I correct a hazard at the same time. I was like, man, I really be feeling good. It's like a dopamine effect. It's like I get this like super, I'm ready to go and conquer the world feeling off of just correcting one hazard. And I'm like, man, I need to ask somebody, is that weird? Because I feel good, man, and I just love what I do and just being able to help people. And I think that's what it really is. Like me helping people, even just with safety, I'm like, man, I'm contributing to a positive world. I'm making the world a better place. And I'm telling you, I never thought like that until I got into safety, until I got in a corporate setting and people started asking me, Anthony, what do you think we should do? I'm like, what? Like I know I've been studying and going to school, but they asking me for my expertise. And I started to realize like people trust me. They really trust me to make the right decision for this job site and for the people working on the job site. And I'm like, man, what more honorable position could I be in than to be trusted with the studies and the practice that I do every day?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The somebody once said to me, one of my mentors again, I was having a rough time after I think it was might have been my second or third fatality that I had to investigate. Um, but I was having a tough time with it psychologically, and
Mm-hmm.
one of my mentors, his name's Frank.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, he said to me, "Look," he says, "you'll always know how many fatalities you had to investigate, but the beautiful thing is you'll never know how many lives you've saved."
Hmm. Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's the way that I look at safety, right? That's the way that I look at a post that I put on LinkedIn, or doing an interview with you, or being on site and calling something out, or even being on a Saturday, I'm out with my family and there's some roofers not tied off,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get that mindset where you're like, oh, okay, hang on, it's Saturday, right? Like I should just kind of put my head down and keep walking. But safety's a vocation, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
feel that need to just look up and say, hey, you guys should tie off,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, my wife hates it, but I mean, hey, it is what it is, right? You'll never know how many lives you saved. But
Right.
the last question's two-part question. I wanted to ask you, number one, what's your favorite thing about being a safety professional? But also, what's your least favorite thing about being a safety professional?
Okay. Okay. I like that. A positive and a negative. So the thing that I enjoy the most about safety um, is just like I said, the impact that I can make, the fact that I can speak and I'm passionate about safety. So when I speak, I feel like I'm speaking with purpose and I'm really able to help people. Um, that's the positive. The thing that the negative is sometimes I'm not liked before people even like really get to know me, and it's getting better, but I've met so many people who just they don't like me because I'm the safety guy, and they automatically sometimes assume that I'm a bad apple who's going to stop production. I'm going to slow down their work. I'm going to make them feel like they don't know nothing, and I'm the farthest thing from that. So that's really the only thing I've ran into in safety that just really gets me. It's like, man, I remember the first time I met a guy, man, I said, I said, buenos dias. And I said, ¿cómo te llamas? So I was just asking ¿cómo te llamo? So I was asking people how they were doing. And the guy just started cussing at me in Spanish. I was like, he didn't cuss at me, but it was indirectly. He was talking to his friend. And when he cussed, he said safety. I said, man, this brother don't even know me, man. Give me a chance. I'm like, I'm like, what's up with this guy, man? I didn't even stop work. I said, good morning. How you guys doing? And I think sometimes people have just had such bad encounters with people in safety who want to just exercise what they know that they forget. Like you said, we're in the people business. If you're pushing these people away, they're not going to correct the hazards, or they're not going to tell you what's hazardous unless they can just really identify the fact that like somebody's going to get hurt immediately. They're not going to really report that if you're coming off as a drill sergeant. So that was one situation where I was like, man, what this guy said to me was true. Like, you're gonna be the man. Before I got into safety, I said, man, I think I know what I want to do. I was in Mansfield, Texas. I was at a job. This was like actually one of my last soil testing jobs. And I was talking to a guy, and I said, Senor, I think I know what I want to do. He said, oh yeah, what's that? I said, I want to be a safety guy. Man, he stopped walking. He was like, you don't want to be the guy nobody likes? I was like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, that was such a bad impression for a first time. I was like, what do you mean? He said, dude, you can ask anybody out. We were moving dirt, and dozers were everywhere. We had dump trucks everywhere. He said, you can ask any worker on this site. Nobody likes the safety guy. I said, man, well, they haven't met me yet. Man, that sounds real arrogant, but I really believe I'm different from as far as a person who's a jerk in safety. Like, I don't even carry myself like that. So I'm like, man, they haven't met me, man. I think I'm a likable guy. Like, what are you talking about? And so he was like, well, you know what? Maybe you can make a difference. And I feel like thus far I've been able to kind of do that. Some people is a little harder at times because they just set in their ways. They're on their way out of retirement. I understand. But that's really the only negative thing. Sometimes people judge me before they get to know me. I'm like, oh man, here we go. I'm gonna have to win him over. It's gonna take a little time. I'm gonna have to let him say some of his critical uh, notions of what he think about safety when he sees me. But over time, he'll warm up, or she'll warm up, and it'll be good.
Yeah, yeah, it's a sales job, right? That's the selling safety.
Hmm.
But listen, we're out of time. I wanted to thank you again very much for taking the time to chat with me here. I'm going to
Hmm.
have a link to Anthony's podcast in the show notes here. And stay tuned. This has been a fantastic interview, Anthony. I thank you again for your time.
Thank you for having me, sir.
Have a good one. Stay safe.
You too.